Good afternoon, good people. I'm going to try not to make this video very long. There have been a number of different responses about what has happened in Minnesota as it relates to the killing of Renee Good. And I'm going to start off by, there's this quote that says that we can easily forgive a child for being afraid of the dark. The real tragedy in life is when men or adults are afraid of the light. Now, the purpose in saying this, that it's understandable for children to be afraid of the unknown. But the tragedy or the real failing in life is when adults are afraid of the truth, of knowledge, and enlightenment. And in light of all of the various lawyers, law enforcement, from prosecutors, judges, you name it, that have come on to social media to talk about the violations of the Constitution, violations of rules of engagement, violations of the escalation of force continuum that the agent did. For some reason, many just don't want to acknowledge that. They want to ignore it. They want to be dismissive of it. They want to reduce it down to some type of meme or some type of political move outside of the fact that this was a criminal act that occurred. The escalation of force continuum is very simple. It is a guideline that even from armed security to your sheriffs, your municipal police, all share in how you escalate force. It starts off with presence, the actual physical being of a law enforcement is the first step in the escalation of force continuum. Then you have verbal warnings and or commands. Then you have enhanced verbal warnings and or commands, where the verbal commands becomes more aggressive. Then you have a physical use to being able to have the subject comply. Then you have non-lethal tactics that can then be used. There's a number of different things that can be used in that case. Lethal force is the absolute last resort. And there are very, very specific scenario situations in which lethal force is legal or authorized. And lethal force could at one moment be authorized and then the very next not. The difference is that as professionals, as someone like myself who has served in the military, who has served as an armed officer, we have to be able to recognize when those things change. We go through training after training, scenarios after scenarios to prepare ourselves for such incidents. This particular agent ignored training, ignored policy, ignored the Constitution, and ignored state law, and executed Renee Good. There is a passage within Homeland Security that specifically talks about a fleeing subject. I am going to read it for you. It says, the second line is actually, the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement may use deadly force only when the law enforcement officer has reasonable belief that the subject of such force poses imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury to the law enforcement officer or to another person. This Renee Good was not there to cause harm to anybody. There was no threat of her presence being there, talking about the fact that they wanted law enforcement or the ICE agents not to be there. Now, as it pertains to the fleeing subject, deadly force shall not be used solely to prevent the escape of a fleeing subject. Okay? However, deadly force is authorized to prevent the escape of a fleeing subject where the law enforcement has a reasonable belief that the subject poses a significant threat of death or serious physical harm to the law enforcement officer or others, such as force is necessary to prevent the escape. You do not shoot at a vehicle. There's also a passage for that. You do not shoot what is considered, if the person was even a fleeing felon, you do not shoot. This was an unjustified shooting. And there are members of the media who are trying to say that there is a legal precedent for it when there isn't one in the Constitution. There is not one in the escalation force continuum. And there's not one in state law that would justify this shooting. So there is no legal grounds for this particular shoot. This should be investigated on the federal level and prosecuted as such. However, due to the nature of this current administration, this will probably be on the state and will probably be a little bit of time before justice is served for Renee. I wish everybody nothing but peace and blessings, but this has been a rough start to this year. Until next time.